Okay. Hi, folks. My name is Adrian Cotter. I'm on the agenda committee for this fine committee, along with John Bowers and Myra Redmond. As we're going, if you have questions, please try to raise your hand using Zoom. That way, it's easy to prioritize who's on first. If for some reason we're not calling on you, please feel free to come up and project, because sometimes we miss it as well. One thing before we get into introductions, these meetings have been going super long of late and getting increasingly longer, it seems like, over the past year. And I just hope that we can, I don't know, if anybody has any good ideas about how to facilitate better that issue, I would welcome them. I'm not very good at interrupting people. So I guess I would ask for people to have some self-restraint of, if you have several points, if you could just raise one and see if there's time at the end, or find another way to ask that question. We would all appreciate it. Last time we were here till almost 10 o'clock, I think, and making decisions after a lot of people have left isn't fair to the larger committee, nor to city staff, or anybody who's here after hours. So I just appreciate some thought around that from y'all. We have tried to keep this agenda today pretty tight, and left off some stuff. So hopefully we can just focus on the important things. But appreciate your attention. So I'm just gonna go around and ask people to introduce themselves, and I will start with Bill.
Bill Threlfall, Waterfront Action.
Robert. Robert Kidd.
Oh, hi, Robert Kidd, citizen.
John Bowers.
John Bowers, Lake Merritt Institute, Agenda Committee. I apologize for lack of video. It has to do with Memorial Day being on a Monday, and that screws things up in my household.
James.
James Van, with Coalition of Advocates for Lake Merritt and Homeless Group.
Myra and Bob.
Myra Redmond, LMI Agenda Committee.
Bob Redmond, Essex Community Action Committee, Lake Merritt Conservancy.
Kira.
I'm Kira Pasco, the Oakland Parks and Recreation Foundation Development Director.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
David.
David Wofford, Rotary Nature Center Friends. Adrian, there appears to be a bit of an echo when you speak. I don't know if you could address that.
I will do my best. I probably need to find some headphones. So hang on a second for that. Katie.
Oops. Katie Noonan, co-chair of Rotary Nature Center Friends and LMI board.
Hazel.
Hi, Hazel Tesoro. I'm also with Oakland Parks and Recreation Foundation. I don't know if I'm supposed to say here to support Measure Duty Coalition for this meeting.
Robert. Thanks.
Hi, this is Robert Prinz, Advocacy Director with Bike East Bay, also a board member with Walk Oakland, Bike Oakland.
Welcome. It's been a while since we've seen. Rick.
Rick Rickard, Bike East Bay.
Patrick.
Hi, Patrick Phelan. I'm a transportation planner on the bicycle and pedestrian program at OPDOT.
Welcome. John Klein.
Yeah, I'm John Klein, and I am a resident of Brooklyn Basin, and I'm here with regard to the Estuary Park matter.
Lee.
Lee Orrick. I'm with the Lake Royal Apartments, which is on Lake Merritt, so an interested Lake Merritt citizen.
Natalie?
Hey, I'm Natalie Orenstein. I'm a reporter with the Oakland side, just watching the meeting today.
Vince?
Hi, good evening. Vince Geronimo. I live in Cleveland Heights.
Rebecca?
Rebecca Dar, Oakland Public Works, project manager for the Peralta Park effort.
Thank you, Rebecca. Lori? I'll kick it over to Terry and come back to Lori.
Did you say Terry?
I did, yes.
Okay, Terry Fashing. I'm the acting manager for the Watershed and Stormwater Management Division.
Lori, did you want to introduce yourself? We're not hearing you, so you can introduce yourself on chat as well.
Adrian, can I ask one quick question? I don't see anywhere, there's no hand raising like on my screen. Am I the only one that doesn't have a hand raising link?
It's under reactions.
He's probably on an iPad though.
Reactions are more.
Well, if you don't see the hand raising function, please feel free to speak up or raise your hand physically if you can.
Well, I don't have video. That's the problem.
Then you'll have to speak up, interject when you can.
I'll just have to interrupt it. Okay.
I know the agenda went out late, so I'm not sure that anyone has had a chance to review. And also similar with the minutes, I would say we pass on approving those until next month. Because I don't think anyone would have had a chance to read the minutes, which were extra long.
Well, the minutes went out early, and I would move to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second. David.
There are some changes that I got from Terry that I have to make, so I need to make those and put another draft up.
I withdraw the motion.
Okay, we will wait till next month then. So from here, and is my echo gone away, David, or anyone else? Okay, thank you. And thanks for pointing that out. Terry, I think I would hand it over to you at this point.
Okay. Turn on my video. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry. Okay. So hold on. Just looking for the share thing. Oh, here we go. Post disabled participant screen sharing. Is there a way to not disable that? Maybe is that you, Hazel?
I'm gonna try right now. It's asking me for a code. I'm not sure why. So 1 second. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Hazel, can you make Terry a panelist?
I think she's working on that. I think she said there was some code that she was asked for that she wasn't familiar with. Um, um, this would cause problems with some of our presentations a little later.
And sorry about this. We got all of our Zooms changed lately, so I am getting the access from Mandel.
Sorry about that. Sorry we didn't figure this out ahead of time.
Let's welcome Jason Patton and Harold Duffy while we wait, perhaps.
That's a good idea. Jason and Harold Duffy, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, can people hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey. Good evening, I'm Jason Patton. I am the section lead for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Program in Oakland DOT's Safe Streets Division.
Good evening, I'm Harold Duffy, the Assistant City Administrator for the City of Oakland. I'm Acting Public Works Director and Assistant Director for Building Design and Construction.
Actually, if anyone had an announcement they wanted to do verbally now, that would also be a good time. So Kira, I don't know if you wanted to bring up the Love Our Lake.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. I wanted to announce that we're going to be doing a Love Our Lake initiative. This is an initiative that is being done to bring joy and vitality to Lake Merritt. It is an initiative that is done with Children's Fairyland and the Oakland Museum of California, Oakland Public Library, Visit Oakland, and the Oakland Parks and Recreation Foundation, which I'm with, and the Oakland Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. Our launch is going to be on the 25th. So that's coming up this weekend on Saturday. We're going to have 4 concerts throughout the summer, as well as really advertising and promoting a lot of initiatives that are happening and events that are happening around the lake for culture and also for stewardship and volunteer events. The event that will be on this Saturday starts at 1 p.m. and that's the launch. And it's going to be a concert and a community picnic at the park. It's going to feature Samba Funk, and he's going to do a procession up to the bandstand with his band. And then we're on to Samba Funk with King Theo. And we're also going to have the Jazz Mafia and also OSA's Jazz Combos, Oakland School for the Arts. And we're going to have whole initiative there with the press conference and some elected officials and some of us talking and saying why this is such a fabulous event. But I do invite everyone to come because it really will be a fun community field event to really just bring some good energy and vitality back to the lake. And the event in terms of the music is also going to be produced by Art and Soul Oakland. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me either here or in the chat.
If you have a link or anything you could throw in the chat, that would be good.
Link, I'll show the calendar. So everything is going to be advertised on the calendar with Visit Oakland. So that's what I'll put into the chat.
James, I see your hand up.
Is it 1 day or 2 day, and what time start?
It's going to be throughout the summer, and so it starts Memorial Day. So it's going to start with, well, what was called Memorial Day. So it's going to start on the 25th, and that will be from 1 to 4 p.m. I'll put the dates of the concerts that we're having in the chat too, but these are just the concerts. There's a lot happening. And so I would also suggest looking at the calendar because that's going to have a lot of the events that are happening for different kinds of workshops and stewardship events, volunteer events, and things like that too. But the ones that we are officially producing for the concerts are going to be May 21st, June 22nd, July 27th, and August 24th. And I know you won't remember that, I don't think, so I'm going to throw that in the chat too.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Katie, do you want to announce any Rotary Nature Center Friends talks?
Katie doesn't appear to still be with us. This is David Wofford, co-chair of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And if Katie were here, I would just say that I'm sure she would want you to know that the first, the Lakeside Chat that happens the first Friday of every month, which would have been June 7th, and featuring Eli Kirsch discussing the aeration and oxygenation pilot program that's currently taking place inside of Lake Merritt, had to be moved. It's going to be the 31st, Friday, May 31st at 7 p.m. And before the meeting is over, we'll get that information into the chat. And she probably would have wanted to announce that on May 28th and 29th, we will be again representing Lake Merritt at the San Francisco Stewardship at Lake Merritt at the San Francisco Estuary Institute biannual conference on the state of the estuary. And maybe a few other things, but that's all David can think of right now. Thank you.
Thank you, David. James? I don't know if you had if that hand was up from earlier, James, but you're on mute if you're talking.
Oh, David, the question was, what's the status of the Science Center?
I've had occasion to sit in several meetings with Sybil, last name escapes me, who's the executive director of the Junior Art Science Center that caught fire. That's what you're referring to, correct, James? The Junior Art Center, not the Rotary Nature Center. Or were you asking about the Rotary Nature Center itself, James? There are two buildings there that caught on fire.
Well, both then. Thank
you. I'll be quick. The Junior Art Center is currently, they're working right on top of planning a reopening date. There's been some remodeling and some expansion done, and they have shared bits and pieces of the type of programming in a couple of different meetings that they're developing. So they seem to be well underway. However, each time they said, but we've been here before. And so, but it seemed imminent. They've been partnering with, along with the organizations, the lead organizations that Kira mentioned in the planning for the Love Our Lake campaign that will be starting this weekend and run through Labor Day. They've been a part of those meetings. And so again, I feel like they're imminent in terms of a return. And I'll just quickly say that's all the opposite of the Rotary Nature Center. word comes out, all I've heard is that it's being dealt with and worked on, and it's a bit of a process. We used to be able to see work there happening on the ground, some clearing and some workmen going inside of the building, but for the last several weeks, there hasn't been any of that. And sadly, not any staff presence to take responsibility for the gardens or the yards or the bird baths. And so we just clean up and weed and do what we can in the meantime.
Sonomia has been
There
on
may be a study-
Sonomia has been on parental leave. I know they had a temporary person in there. I'm not sure how much she's been able to do. Sonomia had hoped for a fall reopening of the Rotary Nature Center, but sort of as with the Junior Arts Center, things kept taking longer, so I don't know if that has changed or not.
Adrian, could I ask David a question while he's on the floor?
Sure.
David and Katie and Terry, I think, are the ones who are present at this meeting, who were at a meeting earlier this week that was convened by EPA. And EPA is trying to find an alternative way of addressing the problem of dissolved oxygen in the lake, short of actually imposing requirements or controls that are referred to as total maximum daily load requirements. And they are conducting a series of meetings. The first one was this past Wednesday, and I thought the contents of that meeting were very interesting. And if we wanted to take a couple of minutes and ask David or Katie or Terry to briefly describe what they heard at this meeting, the significance that they attach to it, and how they see this effort by EPA applying to the lake and helping solve some of the lake's problems down the road.
Could we, before we do that, could we get an update, Hazel? What's our progress on? Because I would like to get to the agenda, and time is getting on now. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we can move forward with one of the agenda items before we go down another little bit of a possible rabbit hole.
The subject that I just mentioned is on the agenda.
I know, but it was
it's at the end of the agenda. So that's
I understand that, but I'm asking if we can move forward with one of the other ones if someone thinks they could move their presentation forward without screen sharing.
You're the facilitator.
I know. So I was hoping for an update from Hazel. But then I'm also asking the presenters if they think they could talk through their issue without presenting, because it's going to be the same for everyone.
Adrian?
Bob Rudman has his hand up.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Just wanted the Lake Merritt Conservancy want to announce that we had a great meeting back on April 12th with the Connect to Create theme at Laney College. And we had a architecture department review. James Van was one of the judges that judged the entries from these wonderful students. And we're having an award ceremony to announce the winners. Just to let you know that the young people of Oakland going to the colleges have their great insight as to what things should happen at Lake Merritt Park. So we were just, anybody that wants to contribute in this fashion, the small meetings are going to be what we're going to be doing in the future. So thank you very much, and know that we do have a future with young people here.
Thanks. Robert?
Hey, Adrian. I can go ahead and kick off my agenda item if you like, without
Sure.
screen sharing. I have some shareable links that I can throw into the chat as well, if that helps for people who want to load them up on their end, for those who aren't familiar with the vicinity.
And we should, Barry, if you want to try sharing your screen now.
Sorry. I'm having a little. Okay. In trouble grabbing it. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I have misplaced my file. Hold on a second. Hold on a sec.
Hazel, do you have it? Can you put it up?
No, it's okay. I'll put it up in a second. I just must have closed something that I wanted to have open, so my apologies. Okay, here we go. And then this there. Okay. Share. Okay, so this is, can you see, these are the draft minutes. Is this what you're seeing?
Yes.
Draft minutes. I wanted to go through my to-do list, and there are a few things that I'll have to put forward to next time or get back to folks between now and then. I apologize, but I did not look into options for free meeting spaces. So I'll make that a high priority between now and the next meeting, or, very soon, I would say in the next few weeks, I will work on that. So free meeting space, this needs to continue on this task. And then make recommendation to CIP to develop this should say a long-term plan for the Lake Merritt decomposed granite path. I did make that recommendation to, well, I discussed this with Craig Pond, who is working on the decomposed granite path project, and so I'll just continue speaking with people here at the city to determine who is the correct person to do any kind of long-term planning around the trails that surround Lake Merritt, because that was not Craig Pond is not the correct person to work on that. And so I did have an initial conversation, but I'll try, my goal is to find the right person to get that message to. So we need a long-term plan, and I'll just make sure that I find the right person for that, because there's, and that might be project and grants management. They're the ones who handle CIP projects. And so I will continue to look into that. And then as far as repairing that decomposed granite path, Director Duffy had mentioned looking into whether Measure Qs might be available for that. And indeed, Craig Pond did put forth a request for the additional funding needed and that request was put forth in the mid-cycle budget process. And to my understanding, this will be considered by City Council in June when they go to consider approving the mid-cycle budget. It is my understanding that the request to use funding for this particular project, this repair the decomposed granite path, it's my understanding that this will be in the mid-cycle budget request. So then check on getting a key to the current fence at Lake Merritt Channel to give to David Wolford. I did not do that, and I'm sorry. I will do that tomorrow. I apologize. And I'm going to write
on
down.
the agenda, can I ask a question regarding that? Or not a question.
Yeah.
Could you add the restrooms behind the sailboat house to that, a key? If there's a female and male restroom, and I asked if it's okay that you and you're taking a look there.
Sure, and probably the best thing for me to do is to find out who's the appropriate person to ask for these kind of access to these kinds of things. So well, I'll check into that for you, David. I'll check on this tomorrow, okay? So key to the restrooms behind where?
The sailboat house.
Sailboat house, okay.
And if need be, I could provide backup information as to need and use.
Yeah. Sounds good. I will find out about that. So the key to that fence, let me see.
Would it be possible to move this out of the agenda?
Sure. Let's move this out. David, if you could would you email me about this, and then we can work on this. I can get you to the right people, okay? And then invite Mike Perlmutter to the May meeting. I did not do that, but I've reached out to him and requested that he plan to come in July. And then I asked him if September might be more appropriate, because there are a few things he's working on that may not make enough progress by July. And so he'll let me know about that. And then I did continue working with the finance on a plan to use remaining Series C funds, and I'll provide more information on that in a minute. And the double check that Category 1 wish list projects are listed in order of CIP prioritization. I haven't done that yet, and that is because of something that I'm going to talk about now when I give my little update using this PowerPoint. So May 20th update. This slide just repeats over and over again. It's just listing who works on Measure DD administration. And so thanks to everyone who does that work. I'm not going to read this whole slide. So Estuary Park is on our agenda. I'm going to go ahead and just not say anything about that here. But this is where we are with this project. We have the draft CEQA report addendum is complete, and we're at 90% design documentation for this project. We don't have updates on any of these East Bay Regional Park District projects. They're just slowly making their way through these. So back to this decomposed granite path around Lake Merritt. So as I said, there is a budget request through the mid-cycle budget to provide the additional funding needed for the project. And I wanted to note that I don't know, this is a project that is funded by Measure Q, and I guess the way that this ended up on our list through this Measure DD coalition, is it because this was an original Measure DD funded project?
Correct.
That's correct. Okay. Because at this point, the work that is done funded by Measure Q, those updates are given through the Oakland Parks and Recreation what is that called? Parks and
Prac-
Recreation
yeah.
Advisory Committee. And so I don't know if it would be more appropriate to provide updates on this project through there, but we could, I guess, yeah, I guess I will ask Craig to let me know when he completes this project and I can give you all an update, or do you want updates every 2 months on this?
I think a quick update is fine.
I'm
I
gonna,
would say that like we care about these projects because they were paid for by Measure DD, and if they've the
okay,
only reason that any work has been done on this is because our committee brought it up.
okay,
So nothing was happening, and our committee badgered people to come in and talking about it and getting it worked on. James?
Well,
got it.
Also, this has been on our agenda for over 3 years now, and it's a real safety issue here. I mean, people can fall and sue the city for these degraded paths, and it just doesn't seem to me this is that complicated. As an alternative, since there's going to be a significant amount of work being done on Lake Merritt Boulevard, Lake Merritt, Lakeshore Avenue, I wonder if the developer of that project can be asked to take on an additional project, which would be the decomposed granite paths or concrete paths. Just pour concrete. But we got to get this off our agenda. This is over 3 years and it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment. I think there's a plan, James, to get this done, and it looks like, well, I'll just keep asking Craig for updates, but I hear what you're saying, and thank you.
Well, Terry, if I can chime in just for a second,
Sure.
just to comment on this is that the original estimate was entirely too low. They've gone through and done a new estimate, so we will get this project done this year. I'm working with our building maintenance division to make this a priority to get the projects done based on the dollar amounts that they've included in the budget.
That's right. Okay, thank you so much, Harold. Okay, so we don't have a project to provide an update on in category 1. In category 3, Lake Merritt to Estuary connection, we have an update on the Lake Merritt channel improvements at 10th Street, which is fencing, and ultimately will be replanting of the wetland area. But basically, the new fencing was authorized to secure Peralta Park and protect city infrastructure and habitat. We received 1 bid that was not compliant with city business requirements. And we do have Rebecca, so I can ask you where we will be on this, because I know we're working to resolve, but this project was put on hold since mid-April, pending the city's research on spending bond funds beyond the 5-year, beyond the expectation that we would spend those funds within 5 years of issuance. And we did receive green light, or, you know, we reached out to outside counsel in collaboration with Department of Finance and City Attorney's Office, and we were given the green light to proceed with spending the funds, as long as we spend the funds on projects that were in the original bond language, and we need to focus on shovel-ready projects as best we can, projects that are in process right now. That's how we have to focus our Series C and Series B remaining funds. And so therefore, this project is no longer on hold. We just got that clarification this past Friday, and I did put a lot of work over the last couple months into working with Department of Finance and City Attorney's Office on answering this question. And now this project will be moving forward. Rebecca, did you want to say anything about that only one bid was received? Are you here? Oh, she may not still be here. So,
No, I'm here. I just couldn't find my buttons.
okay.
And so, not really about the one bid, other than the fact that it was not able to be negotiated with that contractor. And so now that I've received word that the funds are going to be available, I will resume the efforts with open market negotiations to find a contractor who can comply with the city's small business requirements and move ahead with awarding of this construction as the first step to completing the work at this site.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Okay.
The
So
fencing that was done around from 10th to 12th and around the wetlands and so forth seem to have been done fairly quickly, and it was a very satisfactory job. Are we at least conferring with that same contractor? Because he did it once, maybe he's ready to do it again, can do it quickly.
Well, I couldn't, due to the city contractual requirements, I was not able to do that earlier, but I will be doing so now that it's in open market negotiations and has been approved by the city administration to move ahead with open market negotiations. So yes, I'll be reaching out to that same contractor as one of the contractors that I reach out to. It is not as quick as you think it is, James. It's a long lead time for actually getting the fence fabricated prior to installation. Then once it's fabricated, that's right, the install is very, very quick.
yeah. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so then on to funding category 2, Oakland waterfront access, parks and cleanup. So I think I presented this last time, and I'll take this slide out. The Fruitvale Land Crossing Bay Trail segment is completed. There's some, Chris Reed, the project manager, is working on some finalizing the invoicing and everything, but this project is complete. So we're going to talk more about this project, Union Point Park. I'm gonna have to fix this PowerPoint because this Zoom thing gets in the way of me being able to read the slide, but Union Point Park to 23rd, AKA Miller Milling to CMEX 7th to 23rd. This project is for the November 20th, 2023 meeting of the DD Coalition. This project will be canceled due to excessive costs. We're going to speak about it one more time today. Just to remind everyone that we did do some cost estimates to either do a land-based trail or an over the water trail, and the cost estimates were quite high, above $50 million. We as a group have all determined that we need to not proceed with this project, and we're going to talk about the possibility of an inland alternate route. And one question I am going to have for Department of Finance is whether any measure DD funds could go into such a project. And then there are other considerations with doing an inland project as shown here on this map circled. And we're going to talk about that in this meeting. So I'm going to move on. As we reported last time, and I want to formalize this between now and the next meeting, once we cancel this 7th to 23rd, we have to cancel the Park Street Bridge project because, oops, is that true? Yeah. project to be canceled due to cost of land acquisition and anticipation duration of additional 9 years to complete construction. I'm going to fix this because this should be written differently, and I apologize for this. Basically, without this project, we can't build the Park Street under the bridge connection because it doesn't have anywhere to land. And so that is why we would need an inland path for this trail. So my apologies for this wording right here. It's a little bit confusing and it isn't clear. So moving on to category 5, just to let you know, with the Portland Creek Restoration Project, we did hit a roadblock. We had some 2 areas of pretty severe bank erosion due to the floods and some other issues. And so we thought we would have completed this project by now, but the project manager is really working very hard to make sure that we can complete the repair by October 15th. We have to get new permits from the water board. It's pretty involved and costly. And so we're working out all of those details as we speak. And it has been a bit time consuming, but we are making progress. The trails, benches, fences, and signs will be installed not until fall of 2024. And then 80% of the plants have been planted, and the remainder will be planted in the fall and winter once the grow contract is in place. And that'll be a good time for planting anyway, right before the rainy season. So that's an update there. We don't have updates on Glen Echo Creek Restoration Project or Beaconsfield Branch, which is a branch of Sassel Creek, because we have been so busy working on all of our other urgent projects. Acquisitions, Mike's been busy. He's working on a short list of Mike Perlmutter, that is. He's working on a short list of purchases. Sassel Creek Headwaters shown on the right. He is, in the longer term, he'd like to continue working on the landfill closure inquiry at Dunsmuir Chabot, coordinate with city partners on reducing development pressure on vacant creekside and other lands with natural resource value, and is interested in understanding, pursuing conservation easement monitoring. I don't think we can pay for this monitoring using Measure DD funds. And so this is just a longer term vision for the acquisitions program. So so now I wanted to talk a little bit about remaining C funds, because quite a lot happened since we last met. So here is a table, and I'll kind of walk you through this. Because when the Series C bonds were sold, which was 2017, the expectation was that we would spend the funding within 5 years for many reasons, including the COVID-19 pandemic, staff changes, difficulties, difficult issues that came up with projects, such as not being able to gain easements to build certain projects and other project roadblocks. We were not able to complete all of these projects within 5 years. So we need more time. However, we did work with Department of Finance and our city attorney's office to seek outside counsel to make sure that we were following all of the rules that we need to for spending these funds beyond 5 years. And so we just got clearance to go ahead and proceed, we've been directed to focus on the projects that we can be successful with and complete as soon as possible. And in some cases, that is still going to take years, such as with the Estuary Park project. However, we are, so what I wanted to tell you is I'm going to just go through this table a little bit. I'm going to talk about Estuary Park last. So for the Fruitvale land crossing, this, and also this table represents funds that we already have encumbered, as well as remaining funds. So it includes encumbered funds and remaining funds. So we have about 9 million that we need to spend. So in a simple project like Fruitvale land crossing, we have about 86,000 remaining that we need to pay off invoices that will be coming in on that project. Since we just completed it, we're waiting for the invoicing to be completed, and then we'll be done. We gave you a little update on the 10th Street channel improvement projects. That is where we are going to put up a fence. We're going to replant the wetland, and we are going to fix the irrigation. And we're going to, this is needed for us to be able to meet permit conditions of the Regional Water Quality Control Board and Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we're going to have to continue doing monitoring and reporting to show the success of the plants that we plant out there in the wetlands. And so the estimated cost of that project is about $1.5 million to put in the fence and to replant and do the ongoing monitoring and reporting that's required by the regulatory agencies. And so we're proposing to spend all of our remaining funds in this category, which is the category 3, on this project to finally close out the 10th Street Channel Improvements project. And that's the one that Rebecca Dar is working on. And then for the remaining funds that we have in category 5, we are proposing to spend those remaining funds in Series C on the acquisitions program. And then we are kind of waiting to see what happens with the Cortlandt Creek restoration project. I would like to use the remaining funds to close out that project because we are so close, but now we have run into these unforeseen costs. We have raised quite a lot of grant funding for this project. I believe it's it's definitely over 3 million, might be around $4 million that we've raised to complete this project. And so I'm proposing that we cover our shortfall with Measure DD funding. We've used a very small amount of Measure DD funding for the Cortlandt Creek restoration project. And I would like to, have the money we need to get through this project. And we have what I believe we have as much as I think we will need in remaining Measure DD funds to do that. So we have about 237,000 that could be applied to Cortlandt Creek restoration if we need it. And then in Series C, remaining funds, and then we have about 288,000 in remaining Series B funds. So our plan that we put forth is that we're going to spend that in Cortlandt Creek. If we don't need it all, then I would like to apply the funding to the acquisitions program or to the Glen Echo Creek restoration project that we would continue working on. And then we're saying that we're going to, 5% of this remaining funding could be spent on administrative costs throughout the period of time that it will take to complete the Estuary Park project, which we're thinking we might need until the second quarter of 2027. And so this is what we're proposing. And now I'm going to come up to Estuary Park to say that we know that we'll need quite a lot of money to complete the Estuary Park project. So my proposal, because I was directed to to focus on spending the remaining funding on projects that we are ready to build. And we're essentially ready with our 90% designs for the Estuary Park project. And as we've mentioned previously, we are planning to phase the construction of that project. And what I would like to do is to focus, the lion's share of our remaining funds on this project, the Estuary Park project. That would require moving $1.4 million in remaining funding from category 1. And we would need council approval to do that, because that would mean we'd be moving funding from one category to another. And the reason I would like to do that is because we are not ready right now to complete any of the wish list projects that we have in the category 1 Lake Merritt, restoration and water quality improvements category 1. We have these wish list projects, but we are not ready to proceed with any of these because we do not have an assigned project manager. We need to work with project and grants management to identify when they could, like we discussed, we need to determine which of these we would be proceeding with, and then we need to work with projects and grants management to make sure that they can assign a project manager to one of these, and we would be at the beginning of one of these projects, whereas with Estuary Park, we're so far along. So it is my recommendation that we focus our remaining funds on the Estuary Park project, as well as these other projects. And then I have spoken with Stephen Acker, who couldn't be here tonight because he's at another bond meeting with the community tonight for Measure KK, I believe. So he and I spoke about Series D, the Series D bond sales that would come after spending these remaining funds. And I discussed this list of projects with him, as well as this list of wish list projects, and explained that we would, my understanding is that the Series D funding would go into funding these projects, as well as these in category 2. Or sorry, this is category 3. And, and so he and I are going to continue to work closely and come to you with a conceptual plan for spending the Series D funding at the July meeting. We were very busy working on our plan for spending the remaining funds, that we were not able to get to a plan for spending the Series D funding, but he and I have had a few conversations about it, and we have agreed to work closely with projects and grants management on this, as well as all of you to get your input. So that is what I have to present tonight. And I think there are questions, so I'm going to stop sharing for now so I can see you all. Okay, thank you.
First question is from Rick.
Oh, Rick, okay.
Hi, Terry, thank you. I just want to respond in terms of your terminology of saying that the CMEX Miller Milling segment and the Park Street Bridge are canceled. I would like to see the city at least make it clear that there is a commitment to complete the Bay Trail through Oakland. Other cities like Richmond have done a magnificent job of completing the trail, and we have stumbled, to say the least. Since Lee Huo from the Bay Trail is here at the meeting, and Mr. Duffy, I would just like to make the point that I think the city of Oakland, regardless of Measure DD funding, needs to continue to pursue those Bay Trail segments. And if that involves Mr. Duffy or perhaps Josh Rowan, then the city needs to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
James?
Yes, Terry, am I hearing some new information? We've been instructed that the Estuary Park project, which, where the drawings are 90% complete and it's almost shovel ready, at least for some parts of it. You're talking about allocating funds to begin some parts of that project. Does that mean that the administrative hold has been lifted and we can now move ahead with Estuary Park?
Yes, well, and let's see, this is on the agenda to talk about, so maybe we should wait until then, but I will tell you that, you know, here's the direction that I have, which is that the draft, should I go ahead and say this now or should I wait?
Let's wait.
Okay.
So we're, if we can move on to
Okay.
Robert Prince, because we're about 10 minutes behind schedule, but we've
Yeah.
done some of our announcements. So
I agree. Okay. Yeah. So let's do that. We're going to go on to the Union Point Park discussion, right?
yeah, so we'll come back to Estuary Park in a minute. Robert, are you still available and ready? And Hazel, if you haven't given Robert power to share screen now, that'd be great.
I think it's working for me.
Okay, cool.
I'm sharing now, so you can let me know what it looks like for you.
Looking good.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not a city staff member. Just to preface, I participated in this coalition some time ago, and I apologize for not being available here now. Recently, my work with Bike East Bay takes us all over the East Bay. But I did hear the news at the previous meeting about the Union Point Park connection over towards the Park Street Bridge. At that point, I was notified that, the project was significantly delayed again, and now it sounds like it's pretty much on, permanent hiatus. When Measure DD was passed by the voters back in, 2002, and I've certainly been involved in a lot of the conversations about this segment since then. But just knowing that, the connectivity, not just for waterfront access, but just safety for people biking and walking has been an issue through Jingletown for some time. I was previously interested in trying to encourage this coalition to support a resolution for the city to look into near-term investments for connectivity through this area, while still reaffirming the goal of the continuous Bay Trail. And I wanted to bring it up now because there's some timely funding opportunities that I'd like to let you know about, and a couple other projects in the works that you might already be aware of that could, provide some of those links. So I drew up this map. This shows the Jingletown area with Union Point Park up here, towards the top, and then the Park Street Bridge in the middle, and then the High Street Bridge towards the bottom. All the solid lines are existing completed segments. The green is the Bay Trail, including that, or excuse me, not the High Street Bridge, the Fruitvale, Miller Knox Bridge, Miller Sweeney Bridge. And the dotted lines are, projects that are proposed. Some of them have existing facilities, but of course the Bay Trail connection from Union Point Park to Park Street Bridge is the proposed facility. This dotted red line along Kennedy Street, there is an existing painted bike lane there, but has been long been a proposed facility to help connect, potentially with a two-way separated bikeway over towards the Park Street Bridge, which would potentially then connect to that pathway underneath the bridge if ever gets completed. And then this purple line is a sort of existing shared lane bike boulevard facility. That means there's no separated bike lane. There's just shared lane markings. And it's also, I included this as dotted as well because it doesn't currently meet the city's standards for a bike boulevard, or what they're calling neighborhood bike route facility, in terms of average vehicle speeds and daily volumes. So the solid lines, existing bike lane here on Embarcadero that turns into East 7th Street to the west. And then to the east, if you haven't been out there recently, the city's been making a lot of progress on a very high quality separated bikeway on Fruitvale Avenue from the BART station all the way down to the Bay Trail. City staff have told me there's maybe about 3 months left of construction. There'll be a little bit left to do around the railroad crossing after that once they get Union Pacific's permission, but it's already somewhat rideable and will be getting even better over the next few months. So these green lines, the trails, we typically call them a low stress or all ages and abilities facility. Same thing with the high quality protected and separated infrastructure like we're seeing on Fruitvale Avenue. And then the third thing that we usually try to include in the all ages and abilities facilities are the highly traffic calmed neighborhood routes, which East 7th Street could be with some opportunities that are coming up. One of those opportunities is the upcoming paving work. If you haven't looked at it yet before, the city has a map for their current 5-year paving plan. It shows all the streets that are on that plan and what year they're estimated to be paved. East 7th Street, if you click on it, it shows you construction years estimated at 2027, so just a few years away. For most of East 7th Street is included. If you haven't been out there, it's in pretty gnarly shape right now, so it definitely needs it. And Kennedy Street is a concrete roadway, so it's not included in the paving plan, which focuses on asphalt, but there has long been a Kennedy Street proposal to fix up some of the concrete there as well. They don't have a timeline on that currently. So 2027 on this East 7th Street connection. Another thing that's coming up soon is the Regional Measure 3 bridge toll funding specifically for Bay Trail and safe routes to transit connections. And this corridor on East 7th Street could potentially serve as one or both of those. It's certainly within the vicinity of a transit hub, meaning the Fruitvale BART station, so it could be considered a safe routes to transit project. Or if this group and the Bay Trail group allowed it as an interim inland route connecting between Fruitvale and 23rd Avenue, it could also be considered a Bay Trail alignment. So we've got two options without the waterside trail, meaning you have the Kennedy Street alignment that gets you down to Park Street Bridge, and you have the East 7th Street connection, which kind of bypasses that whole area. But somebody could dip down on Peterson Street if they wanted to get back to the Bay Trail sooner. Two things that I think are worth noting is that this Kennedy Street connection goes by like the CMEX driveways, and all the other traffic that is along the waterfront have driveways on that corridor. So it does make it particularly difficult to build a low stress bikeway there, just given the types of traffic that's going to be necessarily crossing that bikeway on a regular basis. So I think there is an opportunity to do something significant here to make that connection, but there are inherent issues with that corridor in creating a safe and all ages and abilities connection. On the other hand, this East 7th Street connection bypasses all that driveways and goes through a residential area. The city has already done some data collection on all of the existing proposed neighborhood bike routes. This one is signed at 25. It currently gets an average, car speed at the 95th percentile, which is, basically almost all the traffic at around 30 miles an hour. So it's currently above where it should be in terms of vehicle speeds, but that could be brought down with some traffic calming associated with that paving project. It currently gets around a little above 1,600 vehicle trips per day. That's very close to the 1,500 vehicle trips per day threshold that we want to stay below with these neighborhood bike routes. So again, with some traffic calming and upgrades around that, both the speed and the traffic volume thresholds are achievable, in my opinion. So the last thing that is really needed in order to make this facility work really well for both people biking and walking are some intersection upgrades. In particular, I have a star here on the 23rd Avenue crossing. This is pretty tricky because bike and pedestrian traffic that's crossing westbound has to contend with a lot of left turning vehicle drivers going up 23rd Avenue to get to the freeway ramps. There's currently no separate left turn signal or phase. So that means that all of the westbound bike and pedestrian traffic has to contend, well, mostly the bike traffic because the sidewalk is only on the south side of the street, has to contend with all those left turners. So there's an opportunity here for a signal upgrade to account for that. Next up, we have the 29th Avenue crossing, which if you haven't been there, it leads to an underpass of 29th Avenue, but it's actually pretty gnarly, especially because this 29th Avenue again turns into a freeway ramp. And this is what's called an uncontrolled crossing, which means that there's no signal or even a stop sign. And I have a Google Street View of what that looks like right now. So this is the crosswalk that you get. You have a building here in the way that kind of obscures the sight lines. And then you get all the way over to this nice, dirty undercrossing. There's a lot of opportunities here, I think, in terms of addressing some of these sightline issues. Perhaps, with some flashing beacons to give a heads up to the drivers to expect bike traffic here, but also to help reorient the bike path of travel to this undercrossing instead of having it be only oriented to the pedestrian crosswalk. So that's the second intersection, and the third one is all the way over here at Fruitvale Avenue. We had an opportunity to connect the East 7th Street Bikeway and the Fruitvale Bikeway with that Fruitvale project, but unfortunately Union Pacific pushed back on that, and the project as currently being built doesn't have any dedicated connection between these two facilities, especially for left turning traffic. This is what it looked like, before the construction of the current facility started. Basically, if you're on East 7th Street and you want to make a left onto Fruitvale, there's not going to be any crosswalk or any sort of facility to help navigate that, mostly because Union Pacific owns this track and they don't use it very frequently. I think they run a train on it. They're required to like once a month or something. And because they were able to weigh in on their track up further ahead, they also got an opportunity to weigh in on this as well. But if this crossing was handled as a standalone project, then Union Pacific wouldn't have any authority to push back on a crossing upgrade. So that's why I'm interested in having this happen separate from the Fruitvale Avenue project. Then we can add a flashing beacon or dedicated crossing here for bikes and pedestrians. So basically, we've got paving coming up 2027. We have the Regional Measure 3 Bay Trail or Safe Routes to Transit funding. There'll be one round of funding in 2025 and another in 2027. And so basically the paving is already taken care of. The city can do traffic calming with their existing Measure U funding. But these intersection upgrades are, especially the signal work, is pretty well outside the scope of what the city can do with their existing funding. And that's really a huge opportunity, I think, for that Regional Measure 3, if it got support from groups like this and from the Bay Trail group. So that's the orientation I'm going to provide right now. If there's any questions about this information as presented, I'm happy to try fielding them or pass off to other staff who are on the call right now. Like was mentioned before by Rick, I think it is super important to also reaffirm the city's interest in pursuing this waterside trail as a project, regardless of the information that's been presented to the group so far. But given the fact that we've been working on this for 2 decades already, and there's still no light at the end of the tunnel, I think the people who are using these facilities regularly, and especially future users, we want to help connect to these really high quality facilities that we've been working on and funding on Fruitvale Ave and elsewhere. There really needs to be an interim connection that we can really call all ages and abilities and feel comfortable directing people to as a safe corridor. So we got a number of hands up. I'll let Adrian, you can
Sure. Terry's had her hand up first.
Okay, I just thank you for that presentation. I hopefully we can hear a little bit from our DOT, from my DOT colleagues who are here today. But I wanted to say that one thing I'll be doing is reaching out to Department of Finance to get their, and maybe City Attorney's Office to get their opinion as to whether Measure DD, say Series D funds, any of those funds could be spent on work on an inland route. I don't know the answer to that question. The other complication of Measure DD funds being involved with that and me being involved with that is that such a project would need to be implemented by Department of Transportation. If there were Measure DD funds available for an inland route, then that might help the project score higher in the CIP prioritization process. However, since this would be a project that is different from the one that was originally approved by council, which is a waterfront project, there's just a lot of questions that I have to determine whether Measure DD funds can be spent. How and when would DOT be able to implement an inland route like was just being discussed? And those are my two main questions. So I just wanted to mention that that is something that I've started looking into. And James, I think, is next, but I don't know if folks from DOT wanted to provide any information about the process you all go through for being able to actually implement a project idea. Thank you.
Was there someone from DOT who wanted to answer Terry's question?
I think Jason's going to jump in.
Hey, good evening again. I'm Jason Patton with the Transportation Department. I'm wondering if it may be more helpful to let some of the questions play out first, and then I'm certainly happy to kind of hop in and share, but it might be helpful to me to hear some more discussion and dialogue from others first.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I want to second some of what Terry said. I think it's probably a little premature for this to come to Measure DD at this point. I think it needs to be, the ideas need to be considered by staff and East Bay Regional Parks District, perhaps, Department of Transportation. There's a lot of discussion that needs to go on about the possibilities and whether there is, in the things that Robert has suggested, some options that are workable, that could be feasible. But I think it's too early to take a lot of time of Measure DD on these ideas so early in the process. It needs a lot of staff evaluation and recommendation to come back to us. I think I applaud the suggestion to try and come up with some other possible alternative routes, but they really have to be vetted. And so I just think it's too early to take a lot of Measure DD time at this point.
Myra or Bob? I'm not sure who.
Yeah, Myra. Terry, I noticed you mentioned these projects were canceled, and I think we had discussed that in the past. Is there any way of saying that these projects, the Bay Trail, is deferred or indefinitely delayed instead of saying canceled?
That's much better language. Thank you so much. And absolutely, that is how we're talking about it. As we kind of look at the 7th to 23rd Avenue project, it's definitely a location where we'd like to see a trail built for sure. However, it just might take so long. It might take 20 years. I'm not sure. I think conditions need to change in that location, and we just do not want to continue spending Measure DD funding in that area. And so because of you know, we have just reached too many roadblocks. And it would be quite expensive for us to try to be successful there. So it does seem like waiting is a good idea for the city at this point. But I agree. Let's say that we're the city is postponing work on this. However, somehow I need to figure out how to officially determine that this will not continue to be a measured DD project. And hence
Wording matters for, historical reasons. And
right. Okay. So I'll work on that and work on putting something together in writing for that. But that's a very good point. Thank you.
Rebecca?
So I really appreciate the sensibility about wording and the intent behind future efforts to continue the Bay Trail all along the waterfront. But as the project manager for both the Park Street Bridge trail connection and for the East 7th Street to Park Street Bridge, that I need clear approval, and maybe that's not this group's purview, but I thought it was part of what we were discussing, which is that the projects, the city has 2 projects that are encumbered, have Measure DD funds tied up, and we've had both of these projects have been on hold now for many months as waiting to get final determination as to would it even be feasible to proceed with such a high cost and such a lengthy schedule for completion. And so for me to get the clear approval that yes, the projects that I currently manage that were intended 20 years ago to continue this along the waterfront and to close out the contracts that I currently hold so that we're not continuing to spend city time, your time, everybody's time visiting these projects that to all extents and purposes cannot proceed as envisioned when the conceptual plans were laid out 20 years ago for this site, which is a highly industrialized site. It's private property, and the 2 projects are just linked at the hip. So one can't go without the other. And so I'm looking for that group vote, the vote that these projects could be my contracts, that the contracts I hold with engineers and consulting firms, that I can close out their contracts, and the city will seek alternative means. And yes, interim for however long it is necessary to at least make the connections, but inboard from the water.
Right. And I think, Adrian, I raised my hand next. I just want to respond to Rebecca and say that it is my understanding that it is, the city needs to make this determination to not proceed with implementing these projects at this time. And so therefore, I will be, I just have to take an administrative step to determine what is the official way for me to be able to, close out, not continue working on either of these 2 projects. So I will be working on that. We have discussed this at many Measure DD meetings, and at the last one we were meant to decide this once and for all, but this was carried forth to this meeting. And I just want to say that the city will not continue working on either of these two meetings, or projects. And I will figure out what is the formal process I need to go through. And I'm not sure if I need to go to council or not. So I will speak with the city attorney's office and Department of Finance and just determine what my exact next steps need to be. And also just in the spirit of what Myra brought up, I will make sure that for posterity's sake, we, leave language in the record that doesn't close the book on these projects forever. We'll maintain the information that we have on both projects because we have collected very valuable information, and so we can continue keeping an active project file, within the city of Oakland, so that or not, I shouldn't call it an active project file. I should just say we will make sure to retain the records and make sure that they're easy to find. But I will be formally, these will no longer be measured DD projects moving forward. And if we have an alternate project, that's going to have to be decided in the future as we're talking about how we're spending Series D funding. And so now I will pass the baton to Lee, I believe.
Great, thank you, Terry. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lee Huo. I'm a longtime planner with the Bay Trail team over at ABAG/MTC. I just wanted to be able to jump in and kind of give the kind of Bay Trail perspective, I guess, out of this entire situation. I really appreciate Robert's suggestion about the trying to create a connection essentially to the existing Bay Trail, given the challenges that are out there. And, he's spoken to our team about this as well. I guess on the good thing out of all of this, from what I'm hearing, is that people are really interested in making the connection to the Bay Trail, and that is a good thing in the long run. But with that perspective in mind, my job is to look at the long-term picture of how to complete the vision of the Bay Trail, which is this waterfront alignment, essentially, that is proposed and has been a challenge. And from what I'm hearing, it continues to be a challenge to implement. And we're very dependent on our partners, our local partners like the city of Oakland, to kind of move these projects forward. But, other than the fact that I think it is to mention that it is part of our adopted Bay Trail alignment, and the shore alignment is our priority. That doesn't mean that the city, or if it has the resources and interest to pursue alternate connections at some point, may not be considered the primary Bay Trail alignment, and that's fine. But what I'm concerned about is twofold. One is just detracting from the ability to complete the long-term vision along the shoreline of the Bay Trail. I just want to make sure that whatever winds up being pursued here doesn't somehow indirectly or directly reduce the commitment, essentially, as Rick and others have pointed out here, to complete the ultimate Bay Trail alignment along the waterfront. And, just again, for some perspective about time with the Bay Trail, it's a 35-year program. Moving forward, it's a very ambitious project. It's a very ambitious vision to finish the 500 miles of trail. And you do run into hiccups and challenges, and all the low-hanging fruit is done at this point. Everything that's out there is the complete challenge. And that doesn't mean that we haven't had those in the past as well. And for some perspective, I know that there's a desire to get it done now, but sometimes you just have to wait for the correct opportunity where all the stars align and strike when that occurs, essentially. What Moffett Field, just as an example, that connection in Moffett Field was such a critical gap where there was trails on both sides, but Moffett Field took 25 years of conversations with Moffett and the federal government to be able to get that done. And ultimately it did occur. And one other section that, took a long time to get, but it was, again, because of the commitment of both the local community and our partners at East Bay Regional Parks, who formed a committee to talk about completing that segment of Bay Trail that connects the Bayfront Park in Pinole. If any of you have been out there, there's a very spectacular bridge that the East Bay Regional Parks built out there that solved a very complex situation of trying to land the Bay Trail that was existing on a bluff and then transitions down to sea level, essentially, that needed to cross wetlands and also a railroad track. Extreme challenges. They are expensive projects, and it does take a lot of time to get consensus to go through that. It took 30 years of conversations and cobbling together the funds to be able to do that, but it did occur. So I just wanted to kind of, as we're talking about all of this and the challenges, and I really like the idea of just kind of not saying we're walking away from this project completely, but we're just putting a pin in it for now until we find the right opportunity to move forward, is what I'm trying to put out there. And just also to ensure that we maintain that commitment to finish the ultimate Bay Trail alignment.
Thanks, Lee, for that perspective. I think we're gonna need to move on from this topic as our time is running short. But I appreciate Rick for the presentation and the conversation after. James,
Adrian, if I could just jump in.
So John, like we're running pretty late now. I'd like
Yeah,
to
are
move
we
on.
going to come back to this thing? Is this item on, we're going to come back to this issue later in the agenda? If we are, then I'll wait.
I
No.
thought Jason wanted to make some closing comments. If we could let him have a couple of minutes.
Sure. So John, if you could just keep it short, and then Jason, if you did have something to say, that'd be great.
At the March meeting, as indicated in the minutes of the March meeting, Tara, you were going to provide me with some financial information to give me an opportunity to look at that information and get a better understanding. I am particularly concerned about the city basing its position on correct assumptions. I keep hearing Rebecca Dar referring to the use of private property for the what I'll refer to as the over-the-water alternative route for this trail. And I simply do not agree that any private property needs to be used for that routing. And I, you know, if I don't want to, you know, be a stick in the mud and hold things up and make life more difficult for you than it already is. But I just think we need to, I would like to have the confidence that we are making this decision on the basis of a correct understanding of what the circumstances are in terms of property ownership that is affected by the various alternative routes, and as in connection with that, in association with that, a correct understanding of the costs. If we are talking about public property, as we are, in my opinion, that takes care of a very significant cost issue because we're not using private property. And we don't have to worry about eminent domain or anything like that. So you were gonna provide me with that with that information, and on the basis of that, I was going to you know, either be able to say you're absolutely right, you know, all of your working assumptions make sense, or we would be having a different discussion. But I would still like to see that information.
Okay. So Rebecca, well, I appreciate what you just said, John, and I just wanted to say that we, you know, our cost estimates for doing the over the water project, let's see, water-based, would be $51 million said and done, or that's like our estimate right now. And that would be a very time-consuming project for us to work on to try to piece together the funding. And that is, we need to proceed with spending the Measure DD funds more quickly. And so because of how long it has taken us to get to this point, and because of the expense and the difficulty with proceeding with either option, which would be land-based or water-based, we came to the conclusion that we needed to put this project, as Lee said, put a pin in this for now, from the city perspective. And we, you know, we are ready to move on, and we have one person, John, and that is you. And you are wanting to continue to analyze this. And at this point, unless I'm directed otherwise, I need to move forward and focus on other Measure DD tasks. I can provide you with more information about this, but I would like to just let everyone know that we need to move on from this project, and not continue working on it, and close out both the projects that Rebecca is working on. I don't know how else to say it, except that we've gotten pretty close to, well, almost everyone has voted yes to move on from these projects, but we have, you want more information, which we can provide you with, but that doesn't change the fact that we're going to move on. So I just wanted to let you know that. And so I will provide you with more information. Rebecca, I'm going to need your help to figure out what it is that John would like to see. And you and I would like to work on that in the next week, so that we can provide that information to you, John. And I do want you to have the information that you would like to see. And I also think we need to move on and talk about Estuary Park right now.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Still okay if I squeeze in a couple words edgewise? I'll try and be brief. Thanks, Adrian, for trying to move the agenda. Thanks to the folks here for your work with the Waterfront Trail and for having this discussion about the gap. I fully believe in the importance of the shoreline trail as part of the Bay Trail. And Lee, I appreciate the perspective you provided of, sometimes this does take a long time. I'm totally convinced that this portion of the Waterfront Trail will be built because there's a planning framework and a regulatory framework in place that'll make that happen. More importantly, I hope I live to see it. But if I don't, I can go knowing that it will happen someday, because I just absolutely believe it's going to happen. The inland route has a lot of utility and has for years and years. It's been a designated bike route for 30 years. The bike lanes on Kennedy Street were built 20 years ago. And I've been working in this area for about 20 years now, and making the incremental improvements I can along the way, which will continue to do so. Thanks very much to Robert Prins for setting the table for the discussion and calling out the opportunities that we have in the near term with East 7th Street and some upcoming paving work that I'm very interested in. And we actually have a process in place to help make those improvements happen as part of paving. I think there is certainly a possibility for a larger project and certainly a need. I think a lot of the work on East 7th Street isn't necessarily a big deal. I think the Kennedy Street project is a little bit of a lift. And I don't have concerns about such a project attracting funding. I think it's a really fundamentally good project. In my experience, good projects attract resources. Part of the reason why I think Kennedy Street is so important is it's a really fundamental connection for cyclists traveling between the city of Alameda and basically all points west in Oakland from the Park Street Bridge. It is the best way to get between most of Alameda and downtown Oakland, and I think being able to support that is really helpful for meeting a lot of our transportation goals, as well as recreational opportunities. The challenge, I think, is not the funding, but really the staff time. Oakland's got a lot of opportunities, and way more opportunities than we have the staff to pursue. And so I think potentially the opportunity here, if there's people in this group that feel like the inland route is important, to continue the discussion and try and build some momentum about how that becomes a priority for Oakland staff. One thing that I mentioned to Terry is the capital improvement program process that the city goes through every 2 years to identify priorities. I think that's one way we could be thinking about it, and a way to try and get it into somebody's work plan. And so I wanted to kind of share those general thoughts with you, and thanks for letting me add to the discussion.
Thanks, Jason. John or James, were you gonna take the lead on Estuary Park?
This is John. I thought it was going to be James and Bill.
You're on mute, Bill.
All right. James, are you still here? Well, I think it would make sense to begin this, since the agenda item says update on Estuary Park. We're not in a position to give an update on Estuary Park. We can give an update on what our work group has done. But it might be useful to, since Terry and Harold Duffy are both here, to have an update on the facts of the circumstances surrounding the disputed parcel N for Estuary Park, because we were encouraged very strongly by Mr. Duffy at the last meeting to get those facts before taking any action. We sought diligently to obtain those facts and have been completely unsuccessful. So the question, I think, at the root of the matter is, what provisions are there in the applicable contract documents or other official agreements between the city and the developer that impact the disposition of parcel N? And we don't know. Can you advise us, either Terry or Mr. Duffy?
So what I am able to advise you about, and I will take your questions back to planning and building if I don't have answers. What I'm able to say is that the draft Estuary Park Master Plan, which does include parcel N, the former cash and carry site, is in the okay, so sorry, what I'm reading, I got myself distracted. Let me start again. The draft Estuary Park Master Plan, which includes parcel N in the overall design proposal for the park, will continue to proceed forward with the public review process by the city for adoption. As of today, parcel N is privately owned by the Brooklyn Basin Developer Signature Development Group. The city of Oakland does anticipate an application from the Brooklyn Basin developer that could affect the Estuary Park design currently envisioned in the Estuary Park Master Plan. While the city will consider any developer application, we will also continue to process the draft Estuary Park Master Plan and deliver public serving improvements that would not impede the developer application from being considered if it is received by decision makers in the future. The environmental review process for the Estuary Park Master Plan is ongoing and will allow for public participation prior to the certification of the final environmental impact reports. And so when I said that, when I said earlier that would like to spend our remaining Series C and Series B funding on the Estuary Park project, we would like to focus those funds on building phases of the Estuary Park project that do not include parcel N. And so that is where we're focused. And we'll just continue we'll continue communicating with planning and building, and I'll continue communicating with my management about this. But that is what I know about the Estuary Park project. And I have communicated that we have these remaining Series C and B funds that need to be spent, and the Estuary Park project will be built in phases because of the overall cost to complete the project. And so we are looking at how to phase construction of that project to deliver the public serving improvements that would not impede the developer application should it be received from being considered by decision makers in the future. And so, and if you could repeat, Bill, what exactly it is that you said at the beginning, I want to type that out. I know you put it in writing to us as well, but I just want to type out what you said here tonight.
Sure. But it'll be on the video.
Okay.
Or I'll send it to you afterward. Let's not
Okay.
have time for it now. What's incredible to me is you're saying then that the administrative decision has been made to remove parcel N from the boundaries of the Estuary Park Master Plan. And yet no application, our understanding is the developers made no formal application to the city about this. Why, without a formal process and without consulting the coalition, why have you changed the design of the park?
That's not what she said, sir. What she said was the park will proceed as designed at this point in time. She said that if there is an application that's submitted, that it would be considered. But the park will move forward its entire design at 90% design, and she would develop a construction process to be able to move forward. She can't do anything with parcel N anyway right now. She indicated that it's currently owned by a private developer, and the remediation of that property has not proceeded at this point in time. What she has said is that the design will move forward, and all of the environmental, the EIR process will also move forward.
So there's no decision to remove parcel N from the boundaries of the park.
That is correct.
Okay. But there's also no application from the developer at this point.
That is correct.
Okay. And the city never had any guarantee or contractual agreement regarding parcel N.
No, the city does have a commitment from the developer to remediate the property and give the city the property.
And in what document is that found? We've been asking this question.
I believe that document is in the development agreement.
It's not in the development agreement. We spent $1.4 million planning a park on land that now is in dispute, that the city does not seem to have contractual
The land is not
access
in
to.
dispute. The land is not in dispute. The property has always been designed to be able to give to the city to be able to move forward with a master plan as designed.
But if there's no agreement between Signature and the city regarding that gift that you've just described, how will we make it happen?
There is an agreement.
We'd like to see that agreement.
I'll get it for you.
Will you?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We will expect it. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I didn't expect to be, by the way, James was going to be presenting here. I'm a little surprised that I'm in this role. James is gone.
John, You're on mute. If you...
Yeah, so I'm a little puzzled here as well about this. So Signature owns the property, correct?
Correct.
But Signature has an agreement with the city of Oakland to transfer the property to the city of Oakland once Estuary Park improvements are complete, correct?
I think Signature has an agreement to remediate the property and then transfer the property to the city.
So the answer to my question is yes. The Signature has an agreement with the city of Oakland to transfer the property to the city of Oakland when the Estuary Park improvements are complete. That's what I asked you.
I don't believe that's the timing of it's not when the park is complete.
Yeah, well, in the application, for the application cover sheet for the EIR, it says that specifically, that the property will be transferred to the city of Oakland when the project is complete. Correct?
That's what you said, it said, sir. I'm not
Well,
thinking that.
I'm asking you.
And I gave you my answer.
And what was that answer?
I don't believe the process, what you said is correct.
Okay, okay, well, but that appears on the application for the EIR. So how is it, how do we resolve this?
So Mr. Thiefel asked me to give him the documentation.
He asked you for the ownership. He asked you for the ownership documentation. I'm asking you for the agreement that Signature has with the city of Oakland to transfer the property to the city of Oakland when the Estuary Park improvements are complete.
Sir, isn't that ownership?
That's what, okay, I'm referring to a notation on the EIR application that says exactly what I'm saying to you. I can share it with you on my screen right now if you want to look, if you want to see it. Can we do that? Let's do that. Let's see. Okay, so you see right down here, park renovation and expansion project approved in the Estuary Policy Plan and funded by Measure DD Clean Water and Safe Parks Bond. The existing park is city-owned. Parcel N ownership will be transferred to the city upon completion of the improvements.
So what that might mean, sir, that the improvements is the remediation of the park.
This does not say mediation. This says transfer ownership.
Upon completion of improvements.
Right.
Right. I'm saying I believe the completion of improvements might mean the remediation of that parcel.
Do you have an agreement that encapsulates this transfer provision?
As I said earlier, I would get the agreement.
Sorry?
As I said earlier, I would get the agreement.
Okay, so you get the agreement. Okay. That would be great because this seems to be a pretty key point. Because because if the conflict is here that there's a proposal, there may be a proposal coming to build housing there, but there seems to be an agreement with a property owner to transfer the property ownership. So there's a conflict there, right?
So yes. Yes, so there currently is a design that is moving forward that includes parcel N as part of the overall estuary park. If there is an application that is submitted, and we don't know if there's going to be one, if there's an application that's submitted for housing on parcel N, then that is the question that we have at hand.
No, that's the question I have here is, what is the basis for this notation in the EIR application that says parcel N ownership will be transferred to the city upon completion of the improvements? And those improvements are Estuary Park.
I
I mean, if
would,
you don't know- I mean, it's okay, if you don't know right now, that's understandable, it's understandable you wouldn't know off the top. But this, as far as a proponent of Estuary Park and a proponent of the master plan that has been developed, this is a big deal to me because it throws a housing proposal, throws that all into jeopardy. But we have this notation about the transfer once the improvements are completed.
Well, sir, we are not having a conflict on that. We're having a conflict on what does improvements mean. So
No, the improvements here means what the master plan for Estuary Park. Don't try to say it's something other than that.
I think you're misreading what I'm saying. What I'm saying, sir, is parcel N has to be remediated. That once it is remediated, the agreement calls for that property to be transferred to the city. That's what I'm saying.
Fine. Before or after remediation, the property is to be transferred to the city.
So the way you were reading the document, sir, you were saying that once the improvements are done, then the property is transferred.
Well,
I was saying that once remediation is completed, then the property is transferred, then the city can do all the improvements that it needs.
That's not what this
That is the
says.
only difference in what we're
That's
talking
not
about.
what this, no. I mean, I can see you having a hard time with this because this doesn't, this only goes one way.
Don, I see that James is back. Let's let him
You're
get
reading more to my comments.
Your comments are, okay, this agreement goes one direction. This notation says it goes one direction. The property gets transferred to the city of Oakland upon completion of the improvements. And the improvements are the master plan.
The improvements are the remediation of the property.
Well,
and we're not in dispute about that because we're both saying the city is entitled to the property. We're both saying the city's entitled to the property.
Then how could then the city's entitled to the property? Okay, so that begs the question, how is it then? What are you going to do? Okay, so good. We got you on record saying the city's entitled to the property. So maybe we'll let them go ahead and build 100 units and then take possession of the property. I'm being facetious. Okay, but how are you? That does. The city's entitled to property. Great, we agree.
John, let's let James get in here. He's not had his chance.
Yeah. So anyway, so if you have, along with the document that Bill asked for with regard to ownership, we'd like a document that addresses this transfer of ownership of parcel N from signature to the city upon completion of the improvements. We can disagree on what the improvements are, but once they're done, we would like the document that sets this out. Thank you very much.
I apologize. My computer became very unstable and I couldn't get in. I had to log off and come back. And I know we're running over time, so I'm going to make this short. What we wanted to present tonight to the coalition was the fact that we're involved in a very serious impasse right now. Measure DD approved by the voters included the expansion and improvement of Estuary Park, and all of the documents support that. What happened is the developer came at the last minute and I guess spoke to a staff person, because I'm told I talked to a staff person and found out that there is no formal application for the developer requesting to use Measure DD. And if he did, there are all kinds of complications that would be involved in the developer even being able to use it. So I don't know why in the world the city put an administrative hold on the design documents, which are 90% complete, when there is no legal pathwork for the developer to get measure parcel in for housing. So what we wanted to bring to the coalition tonight was the fact that we're in a struggle here. And if we're gonna continue to move forward on a project that we've already spent 1.4 million in Measure DD funds to do the design improvements to expand and improve the park. And I was gonna, had Hazel prepared to show some drawings, but we're well over time, so we can't do that tonight. But the question for the coalition is, do we just sit back and let a project that should be now completed and moving toward construction, in construction at this point, just sit waddling for the last at least 3 or maybe 4 months, because somehow an administrative hold was put on it, which has no justification. And so if Measure DD wants to back this project as one that is part of the ordinance, the ballot measure that we are ordained by the city to monitor and to oversee, then maybe we need to continue to do some additional steps. One of the things we was going to ask tonight was for authorization to go forward with a press release, because this project should not be on hold. And we need to, if Measure DD is going to mean anything, we need to get behind getting this project moving. We got the money to get it started, and we need to be on the path to getting it started. With regard to one of the things John is arguing, I believe, John, you probably need to yield to Mr. Duffy, because the improvements at that point in the document you looked at, which dates back to 2004 or 2005, the improvements was the remediation.
Right.
The developer is obligated, there is a contract that the developer is obligated to do the remediation on the project, on the parcel. And when the remediation has been done, then the design and development of the park itself can move forward. But the developer is obligated, and that parcel is to go to the city. That's reiterated in a number of legal documents. And so it is going to go to the city, and once the remediation is done, then the park improvements can begin. Or if, as Terry was mentioning, we actually have some money to begin some of the phasing and parts of the site that don't that are not affected by the parcel in, the parcel at the top of the site. So I think what we want from the coalition is, do we want as a coalition, do we want to move this project forward? And if we do, should the task group that you named continue its work to get this project off moving? We've been stonewalled by 2 months from all city officials. Nobody has responded to our many, many, many letters and questions. But so we have also prepared a press release. Are we authorized to move forward with this press release and to continue pushing on the meetings that we're trying to get to free this parcel and get this major DD project done? Thank you.
James, I might suggest that Mr. Duffy has been forthcoming with some commitments to provide some information tonight. Maybe we could make the proposed release of the press release contingent on the committee's review of those documents. They may well satisfy some of our concerns, because he's not stonewalling. He's saying, yes, I will provide the information about the transfer of the property that has been requested. So maybe that might be part of your question to the coalition.
All right, I certainly cannot accept that. I agree with that. Yep.
Okay, Jane, if I might, and I'm okay with that also. What I would like to see, however, and if we can accomplish this, is, as James mentioned, there have been a number of attempts, reaching out to the city for meetings on this, face-to-face meetings, documents that you're hearing about tonight, information that that is not complete, as you can see tonight. And that's over 2 months. So if it's possible, I really don't believe it. We should wait another two months.
Right.
And so if we could get a time commitment on getting back with what we've requested, like the next 1 to 2 weeks, 2 weeks maximum would be my request. But
For a
then
meeting, yes, Mr. Duffy would hopefully arrange, yes.
yeah, but more to the point, I want to again, what James said about the request and what I've said about the request for meetings and information. There's not a dialogue going on. And the city, the people that we've been contacting aren't responding. It hasn't been transparent. And it doesn't feel like this city is being a reliable partner in trying to resolve this. And so there's no dialogue yet. And so that's sort of part of why I'm saying we don't really want to wait 2 months, because we already waited 2 months and we're still basically at the same place. Not exactly, but
Pretty
almost.
close.
So anyway, if we can speed up the turnaround and get some assurances that we're going to have a dialogue about this. It's not going to be just one-way emails. Thank you.
David, I see your hands, and then Director Duffy.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, James. While you were away, but I thought I heard Mr. Duffy and Hassan say this evening that they were presenting that the opinion we would go forward with 90% of the project, everything except for parcel N. That they came tonight prepared to say that there was staff was ready to move forward to spend the money and get it going on the other projects. So
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, so
What we said earlier,
James, did you hear that earlier?
I didn't hear that, but I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. And that coincides with what John Klein was just saying. If we can have, Mr. Duffy can agree to set up a meeting for us at least within the next 2 weeks, we'd be ready to go forward.
so what we said earlier is, and here's the difference between when we last met and where we are today. Based on your concerns and your emails that you sent in, Terry, Christine Reed, and the staff have been working, trying to free up any administrative hold on the project so it can move forward. The only difference that we have right now is that you want the document that shows that the parcel N was promised as part of the project. And that is the document that I will get you that document where it says it's a part of the development agreement that Measure N, which is the private parcel, will be remediated and given to the city. What Terry has explained to you today is there is no more administrative hold on the property. But what she did also explain to you is if and when there is an application to put development on parcel N, the planning department will consider that application and it will move through the process. And the policymakers, which is either the planning commission or the city council, those are the policymakers that will make that decision. You and I, as citizens of Oakland, and you as the coalition, can weigh in on that. But the policy body will make that decision. So as far as we're concerned, from last meeting to where we are today, there is no more administrative hold on the processing of the master plan that has been developed. In fact, we have done additional work to ensure that any monies that we have in Measure DD bonds are eligible to be spent on the project.
Well, that's good to hear, because this is previous understanding was that it threw a major monkey wrench in Terry's plan to spend down Series C. And she was really hampered by that. So the administrative hold has been lifted. if the developer chooses to submit an application, it will go through the usual process. It will not automatically trigger another administrative hold from senior management. Is that correct?
I don't know that, but I would say this. I believe that the EIR process and all that has to move forward. I don't think it's something that can easily be stopped. And if there's going to be a modification, it's not going to be an administrative modification. It will trigger several public items that have to be heard and hearings and modifications for. It's not going to be an administrative hold. Just like we were not able to make any, the administration couldn't just give the property back or anything like that. That's not how that worked. So we were examining the process on how to move forward. And based upon the examination, we felt it best because of the funding source and the amount of resources that we've already spent on the project to move the project forward.
I would like to make one final suggestion, that you view that senior administration view the coalition as community resources that can provide input to this process. We're not meaning to be an obstacle. We're not meaning to create an adversarial role. Instead, the role envisioned for the coalition back in 2002, when the original authorization went to council, was that of a community partner. And there are 5 spelled out roles in the original council action that endorsed the coalition. And one of them is to provide a community view on and input on Measure DD projects. So we would like to be part of your decisions about how to embrace this. We're gratified by what we've learned tonight, but we weren't able to learn any of that previously.
Well,
so we don't wish to be shut out.
Well, sir, and I have great respect for all of the time that you guys are spending on the project. And one of the things that we did initially when we heard about this particular issue is that we were directed to come to the coalition and provide an update. And I came with Terry to ensure that we were as transparent as we could be in terms of what the potential change might be. And since you and I cautioned you guys to get the information, because when we started this discussion, there was hysteria about 600 and some odd units being built on that property. And I said, I don't think that's actually correct. I said, let's find out the information. So Terry's been working diligently to get the information for you, along with where we are today. So we've cleared up some things, but I don't have all the answers for you. But I can tell you that where we are now is there's no administrative hold. The documentation is moving forward as it should be in terms of the environmental process. So I owe you one document, but I will provide you that document when I work with planning to get the development agreement where it identifies what parcel is, what's supposed to happen to parcel N.
Thank you.
I have 2 things right quick. One is, I'm assuming that the remediation.
David, John had his hand up.
Very well.
John, and then Terry, and then I'll.
Yeah, well, yeah, so
David.
just, I'm okay with all this, but what I wanted to say, yeah, there probably was a little bit of hysteria, Mr. Duffy, but even as of February, just a couple of months ago, Michael Gilmetti with Signature Properties was quoted in the Business Times as saying he's going to be pursuing a swap with that property for housing for that parkland. So that was just as of February, just a few months ago. So the hysteria continues on statements like that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm not saying you shouldn't because it is a modification. So I understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Terry, then David.
I just wanted to point out that folks also requested a meeting. So they requested the document that you mentioned, Assistant City Administrator Duffy, and also a meeting. And so I just didn't want us to lose track of that. And I wanted to better understand what meeting is being requested.
James?
For one, the meeting would be to, of course, to look at that document. There are also some documents that we have that we would like to bring to that meveloping as well. There
But
needs
a
to
meeting
be,
with whom?
we're asking Mr. Duffy to set up a meeting. He's gonna he's gonna look up and document if we can have a meeting when that document is ready to present to us. And we can also come to that meeting, bring some documents that we have so that we can really kind of get to the bottom of this. And because I think it's pretty clear when we look at all the documents we've looked at, I think it's pretty clear what the situation is, but maybe we need to bring those documents all together. We've asked for a number of those in our communications. So I would ask Mr. Duffy to look at those and see who in planning perhaps might be also at that meeting. But we would like to have a meeting within 2 weeks so that we can look at all the documents and get the number of questions that we've put forward in the communications we've sent to you. And we also have some additional questions in the draft of a press release. We'd like to pull those all together and have those on the table at such a meeting. So if Mr. Duffy is in agreement with setting up a meeting between now and the next 2 weeks, then we can prepare for that, and you can prepare for it as well. So that would be our request.
We can certainly set up a meeting with planning and public works and your team
All right, thank you.
to go over. I mean, it's also very helpful to either have the questions in advance, and I can certainly send you the document once I retrieve it, and you can tell me if this is what you're looking for.
All right, and we will we'll assemble questions and send those to you also in advance.
Great.
David, did you, sorry to
No
put you on
worries. Thank you
pause.
very much. Am I to understand that the remediation is required by the EIR and the EPA in order to allow a signature to do the construction and the project that they have done, and therefore there's no way out of them, theoretically speaking, of actually doing remediation on parcel N is the first question. And the second one is, Terry, earlier you mentioned taking 1.4 million from the cycle 1 and moving it over to the Estuary Park in order to move things forward. If you weren't to do that, what would that $1.4 million have been used for? I was curious.
That 1.4 the desire was to apply that funding to a 1 or 2 wish list projects, which we have listed out. But because those are harder to get moving, although I'm not sure they are at this point. That was the idea, was that we wanted to put the funding into a project that is at 90% designs, and because we can stage our construction on city-owned property right now. We just wanted to focus all of our funding there because we have been directed to spend it quickly, as quickly as we can. So.
And was I correct in the first part of what I said about the ERI and the EPA requiring the remediation?
It's my understanding that parcel N has to be remediated. If it is to be used for the park or any other thing, it's got to be remediated.
There are some communications about when the remediation should take place, and we can also have those as part of the documents we bring to you. Staff has discussed holding off on the remediation until a certain point. They didn't want the site to be left unattended after it's mediated. So there's another document that talks about when the remediation ought to take place. But the developer is contracted in the development agreements to do the remediation on that site.
All right. I think this feels like it was a good discussion, even if a little.
And I want to thank
sensitive.
Mr. Duffy. I appreciate your contributions to this meeting, and also congratulations on your promotion, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it, sir.
Good job.
All right. Well, it's 9:30. I think the only announcement we didn't get through was the TMDL. I'm wondering if we can just leave that till next meeting.
You can leave it to next meeting, and some of it can be covered in the meantime if you're able to join us for the next Lakeside Chat on May 31st. Well, link to which you could find in the on the tonight's agenda. Adrian, earlier this evening, Mr. Duffy shared with us that he did have information relative to RNC. If he could quickly speak to that, that'd be great. The Rotary Nature Center.
No, I think what I said was I can provide staff to come back and give you an update on the Nature Rotary Center and also the Junior Arts Center.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. So we can.
Adrian, would it be too much to get a feeling from the coalition that the task group that was designated proceed with the meeting we've asked for and was trying to move this project forward? And if in fact we feel that it's necessary to release the press release, that we do that with the after review with the agenda committee, so that we don't wait another 2 months.
Yeah, I feel a little. I mean, there's, aside from the agenda committee, there's. I'm not sure who everybody is. Two people, Vince and Charles, on the call, along with you all. I don't know, and Bob. How do people feel about that, making that determination with the crew that is left?
I agree.
And I feel your trepidation, Adrian, somewhat myself, but I would so move that we do go forward and.
Okay. So if the working group can let us know how things go, we can send that out if
Okay.
things don't.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say one thing.
Sure, go ahead.
I think Natalie Ornstein has signed off, but she may have already taken the coverage of this. So we may have inadvertently made a press release.
Fair enough.
Well, it is a public meeting, so you know.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, are we going to count the 50 people I talked about with it on the way to this meeting?
Well, I'm glad we're all laughing at the end of this meeting, and we're going to have some meetings going forward. So I think it's a good way to end this meeting.
Agreed.
Can I just confirm, James, you all are going to send some questions and you're going to clarify who is in the work group. I know I have that somewhere, but
Yes.
when you send the questions, just confirm who should be invited to the meeting and I'll help make the meeting happen. Okay.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
One quick question for you. Do you want to have a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting, or where you guys come into City Hall?
William, do you have a preference?
I am not physically able to come to City Hall.
Okay.
We can go to Bob and Myrna's place.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Okay.
Well, James, we don't
Conference
all
would
have
be
to be
good.
present. I mean, you can certainly go there. I think it'd be good to be face to face. I would encourage.
Yeah, I think we do need a face-to-face meeting, but maybe there's a way we can do a what do you call it, a dual kind of meeting so that,
Hybrid.
Just
Hybrid.
yeah, hybrid meeting, yes.
just ignore me and set up something that works for.
Ain't no way we
for
can
you and
ignore
John.
you. No way we can ignore you. You're much too valuable to the work group. Thank you.
Well, let us know. We'll be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. We can schedule hybrid.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
I think we have a place we could do that.
Okay.
Okay. I'm leaving for 2 weeks on June 1st, so we need to do it before then.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Terry, do you want to have a brief conversation early or later this week? Just to,
Yeah.
I can go into a little more detail of the kind of information that
Yeah,
I'd like-
let's
I'd
talk
like
on
to
Friday. If you're available on Friday, John, let's talk then. And I'll talk to Rebecca too.
Okay,
And I made a long list of work that I need to do for
Good.
this. So, and you're on my list, John. So,
okay. Thank you very much.
all right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
I want to
Everybody.
thank Hazel for sticking it out so long with us. Thank you for your help, and we can chat. Let's chat about the meeting minutes and work together to get those out quickly to the team, to this group. Okay.
Use AI.
I'll, what's that?
Use the AI companion somewhere. There's,
Use AI. I keep meaning to figure that out. So
yeah.
I was thinking of
that's-
that too.
that's a good point. So Hazel, I'll touch base with you. Okay.
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 Okay, thank you.
All right, y'all. Have a great one. Take care.
Good
evening.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.